In business, people talk about and focus revenue, sales, the transactions, but a kingdom mindset is different because every opportunity is really built on a relationship that's built on trust and service and a kingdom mindset that is different than any other. Welcome to Kingdom Entrepreneur, where it is His kingdom and our calling. And I want to welcome our guest today. I cannot tell you how excited I am for you to hear this man's heart. And really, I think you're going to learn a lot about building relationships that last and endure because it comes from a heart that is for the King. So, Clark, if you would just start and share a little bit about yourself, about your family, and your journey. I'm sure you could not talk about Texas Tech basketball, but go ahead and talk about that, and then the professional development.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Ray. This is fun. Start with what's most important to me. I'm a child of God. I'm a husband. I'm a father as of September of 2025. So a new dad, which is super fun. We had our son Lane, and he's coming up on 7 months. So got a new title last year, which is really fun. Been married to Hannah for nearly 2 years. My bride is incredible. Hannah is a nurse by profession, but is an awesome wife and an awesome mom. And that's really where I'd start for me. You know, I'm super passionate and interested in kingdom business and how you can operate a business based off biblical principles. I love the idea of ministry in the marketplace. Professionally, I've done a variety of things. Most of them really around relationships. You know, whenever I'm in close proximity and relation with people is what I love doing.
Right. Yeah. Good. And very good at it. I've met so many people like, you know, Clark? I'm like, yeah, I know Clark. And they just go on and on. It's almost embarrassing, Clark, how much people love you. But it really is great, that kingdom heart that you've got in your role, primarily focused on business development. Success is often measured by revenue. But from a kingdom perspective, how do you define success in the relationships you build?
I think it really starts with how you approach a relationship. I was telling a group this morning I met with that I've always tried to approach a relationship in a meeting and a phone call without a transaction in mind, without the end in mind. My sole focus is getting to know someone's story. I think when you're developing business relationships, it's important to not be the one that speaks 80%. You want to be the one that listens 80%. You want to speak 20%. You want to understand what's important to somebody, what their story is, you know, what may be a problem that they have that your business can solve. So I've always focused on not looking at relationships in a transactional sense. I've always wanted to ask the question, can I add value? Can our organization add value? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, you gained a relationship, and that doesn't shortcut success. It maybe makes, you know, a sales cycle or relationship cycle longer, but I think it's more genuine, it's more authentic. And I found that people can sniff it out when you sit down at a table and are really interested in a transaction and really what can benefit you or your business. So I've always tried to just take a genuine approach to listen first, understand what someone's story is, understand what some challenges that they're facing, and then is there anything that our business can do to alleviate those?
Great. I love that. I heard it a long time ago. No one wants to be sold, but everyone loves to be served. And as you were talking, that's one of the things I heard. Talk a little bit about how your faith has shaped the way you approach people, not as opportunities, but as individuals that you're called to serve.
Sure. I think when you think about discipleship and you think about Jesus' ministry, very relational. You know, he was in relationship with his apostles, and everything he did throughout his ministry, you know, he was in relationship and he sought people out. And so I've always taken the approach of discipleship. I want to establish genuine relationships. I want people to understand that I care for them and care about them, so that when they hit adversity, not if, when they hit trials, that I'm someone that they can look to and come to and be vulnerable with. And that gives me an opportunity to share how I combat the challenges of this world. So really establishing a level of comfort and a level of care I want people that I'm in relationship with personally and professionally to know that they can come to me with different things and different challenges, and I'm not going to greet them with judgment. I'm going to greet them with an openness, and really try to allow there to be, mutual understanding that these things are some things that we all struggle with.
Great. Yeah. So powerful. And it's been a blessing to get to watch you, not just externally. I was thinking right before we started I've known you for a while, but really from across the room at Starbucks and observed, but getting to watch you more closely, not just with people outside those relationships, but it's very clear that relationships inside an organization are really important to you. How do you intentionally build those relationships that create unity and trust across departments, not just results?
Yeah. I think being in an external role, which anyone who's in business relations or business development or sales, you think of it as very much an external role. That's just half the equation. I believe that success externally starts internally. And if you can execute and deliver upon what you're telling people externally, it's gonna be meaningful for those relationships. And so the people that are in your building are the best ministry opportunity that you have, from my perspective. They're spending a lot of time working in and on your business. They're spending a lot of time in your building. And so having tender care towards those relationships and not caring as much about what people can do for you or for your business, but caring a lot about the heart of those people, their family, what they are interested in outside of work. And I've learned that, whenever you're in external relations or external affairs, there's going to be often times where you have to go down the hall and work with someone internally and say, hey, listen, here's the challenge. We need something to be expedited. And if you've put in work on the front end with the relationship, that's going to be better received versus, hey, Ray, we need this done yesterday and we need it done immediately. And if I've not put the work in and developed a genuine relationship with you, I think there's going to be resistance to an expedited timeline. So I've always, just out of love and care for people, really trying to invest in internal relationships, because that's a ministry in its own.
Is that something that you say you always have? But is that also something that's developed and grown as you've gone, and especially as your faith has developed?
Yeah, it has. Yeah. And I think, as is with most things, you develop it because you've done it the opposite way.
Okay.
So you've tried to, push things across the finish line and were more concerned with the outcome than you were building the relationship. And so I've learned that by doing it differently. And I think, the selflessness that you see in Christ has really softened my heart and softened my approach to building eternal relationships.
Is there a part of the life and ministry of Jesus that you go to a lot, at least in your thoughts, or maybe you go back and read and say, that's the way I want to interact with people a lot?
Yeah. I think the humility and the humble nature of Christ is really appealing to me. I think that, someone who had, and I look at Paul, someone who had all the reasons to boast, but didn't, and was able to surrender and serve. That was Jesus's ministry. And so no matter the accolades, no matter the professional accomplishments, I think having a humble nature, not exalting yourself above Christ, but exalting Christ above yourself.
Right.
I think that is respected in business. And I think that's the person people want to work with and who people want to work for. So I think a humble nature, and there's no better example of selfless service, even giving his life as a ransom for so many. Mark 10:45, that is the example of selfless sacrifice.
And you talked about that in working in a lot of businesses, every business, but it appears to me that more businesses are open to doing business different. And I know that's part of, you've been instrumental leading in bringing Toolbox to Lubbock. So take a moment, or a whole lot more, but talk about what Toolbox is and why you think it's really important for business leaders and owners to come together in that setting, to be encouraged and equipped.
Of course. Yeah. Toolbox is a ministry that is near and dear to me. I believe in men gathering together for fellowship and discipleship and hearing an impactful story. And so I hope that professionally I do a lot of things in my life. I hope that our company at 7B is really successful and accomplished and has all sorts of metrics to measure our success. But I'm here on earth for a finite period of time. And so I want to have kingdom impact. And one way I've recognized to do that is through Toolbox Ministries. It's been around for a decade. It's a men's ministry started with a lunch where you gather. We're averaging about 150 men every month. And someone comes in that shares their story and just says, hey, here's how Christ has impacted my professional life, my personal life, my marriage, who I am as a parent. And our hope is that the Holy Spirit begins to churn in people that attend the lunch and say, oh, wow, I'm not the only one struggling with this. I'm 35 years old. I've got 2 kids. I've got a promotion at work, and man, this is a lot. But there are people who have walked this journey with a foundation of Christ as the anchor. And so I'm super excited about it. I think we've started to see some fruit of it. And the idea is that we can get people interested in Christ, have a curiosity for who Jesus is, get them plugged into a local church, have them start walking a different path, and really hopefully have generational impact over their family, their kids, and then how they carry themselves in the workplace.
Great. Yeah. And I've been blessed to be a part of several of those, and it really is a great group of guys and great message. And so I want to thank you for doing that, for that heart. But talk to us a little bit about the different leadership styles. Maybe just, well, I'm the boss and I'm the leader, I'm the owner, kind of that positional one, all the way to a relational leading and serving, and why it makes a difference how you lead.
Sure. Critically important. And it's something that a dozen years into my professional life, I'm still learning. But I've always believed that, everyone has a voice within your organization. I think that's critically important. I think when people feel like they're silenced or they're put in a corner and their opinion doesn't matter, it can foster resentment. So everyone has a voice, but not everyone has a vote within your business. I think you have, a hierarchy, you have organizational structure for a reason. But I think once people feel empowered and feel like when they show up to work, they can tell their boss, that they see things maybe a little bit differently. They can present the facts. And then there is a boss or an owner that's going to make a decision that they think is in the best interest of the organization. But employees want to know that they have skin in the game. And so, if someone is just pointing down and dictating the way things are always, and they're not open to feedback from the employees, I think that creates challenges, because a lot of times in leadership, you see the boss, the owner, maybe doesn't understand the struggles and challenges of the frontline employee, but makes decisions that ultimately impact them and affect them. I love when you have vertical leadership where an employee can say, I understand you're the boss, I understand you're the owner, but from where I sit, here's what I've learned. And here's some changes I think we can implement. I think that leads to longevity in employees. I think that leads to productivity increases. So I've always been a proponent of everyone has a voice, not everyone has a vote.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great way to say it. And then is also, we talked about your faith developing, but also what have been some of the key influences, whether you name the name of your because there's not a separation of your personal growth. It's also been in maybe some of it in a business setting or a basketball setting. What have been some of the things that have really impacted it and changed the way you've lived and the way you've led?
Sure. No, that's great. I've been involved in different ministry environments. I've been involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes or several mentors through that organization that have impacted me, and that's the crossover of sports and ministry. There's been several coaches. I think coaches have a unique place in young people's lives, to not only push them to succeed on the court or on the field, but also to teach them about life. One thing I've realized, Ray, as I've gotten, call it older, as I have aged, I'm always going to work in a team environment. And I think that, you think that's really only in your sports chapter, but you and I work in teams every single day.
Why do you think it's so important to work in teams?
Well, I get fired up when a team can establish a goal and then everyone can utilize the unique spiritual giftings that they've been given to help achieve that goal.
Yeah.
And I have personal goals. You have personal goals, but I've never accomplished personal goals when I've sought out to achieve those goals.
Okay.
I've accomplished personal goals when I have put those goals to the side
Okay.
and have tried to achieve the team goal.
Right.
Every time you achieve the team goal, you're going to check the boxes on your personal goal list. So I think it's important for people to choose the team. That includes sacrifices, but surrender some of the selfish personal goals for the team's goal. And then at the end of the road, you look back and you're saying, wow, I was able to check some of those personal goal boxes, but we as a team, we won and we accomplished that goal.
Great.
Yeah.
How do you balance the pressure to close deals with the conviction that it's more important to build a genuine long-term relationship?
Yeah, that's a challenge. I think part of it is, a lot of it is, where's your identity? Are you defined by the metrics that you have at work? Are you defined by the way people view you? I have an obligation to our organization to go out and chase revenue goals, so that our company can continue to operate as a kingdom company. So we have the resources to continue our mission. But I've been very vocal at my different career stops that, I'm not willing to shortcut a relationship or sacrifice morals or integrity to achieve a revenue goal. I'm a believer in the long game, and I think that goals can be met, and sometimes it takes longer. But I think a strong relationship is forged. So I've always been disciplined in that. And sometimes there is a tendency to think, well, I could go do this and get this client or get this job. But do you deviate from your morals and values to where it's ultimately not worth it?
But it comes at a high cost. Have there been moments where your faith challenged the normal way business development is done? And what did that look like?
Yeah, I think when people think of business development or sales, conferences and conventions, there's all sorts of things that I think can challenge what you believe and how you want to carry yourself.
Okay.
I'm one who, when I go on the road, I want to conduct myself as a follower of Christ. I want to respect my Lord, and I want to respect my family. And so I'll do things on the road that people don't do, which may be going to bed at 10 p.m. when people want to use that as a networking opportunity. So I think there is challenges in the world of relationships and business development that can test you. And really, it's good to have your foundation in Christ, and also surrounding yourself with people, from a teammate, coworker perspective, who are rowing the boat in the same direction. I think that's incredibly important. Not people when you're on the road, they're going to pull you in a direction you don't want to go. So not being swayed by the waves of the sea, but just being steadfast in what you believe.
I think I know the answer. In fact, I'm really certain. But I know that there'll be a lot of people who are listening or watching that have found themselves in that situation and felt like, I don't really have a choice. I have to do this for my company or for the business I work for. And so when you look back on your experience of making that decision and being faithful to it, have there been any regrets?
No, I don't think so. I think what I always often think of is, is God's provision true? Has there been a moment where God has not provided what I needed, maybe not what I wanted in that moment? And if there's a scenario where you're not willing to do something to complete a sale or do something to accomplish a goal that the company has set forth for you, and that results in a demotion or a termination, just a belief that the Lord will provide, and that ultimately that may not have been the right place for you to be in. Working somewhere where they care not only about your professional growth, but your personal and in our case, spiritual growth, that matters. We talk about, you're not going to be 100% and productive in the office if there's challenges at home, and so it's difficult. It's not easy, but I do believe that the Lord has a plan. and the Lord has kind of winded my career in the way that He has designed it to be for a very purposeful reason.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it till preparing to interview. I've been spending some time reading Daniel, and particularly two of the very early events in the life of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The first one is, hey, you're going to have to eat this food. And he says, can't do it. And then, there's the statue that's built, and you've got to bow down and worship. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego say, we can't do it. And there's a threat. And they said, our God will deliver us. And even if He does it, we're not going to. And so I hadn't thought about it being an application to that very situation anymore. It's worth taking that stand. And I think it's an important thing to do. Have there been moments where you felt your integrity and consistency in regards to relationships where it could have easily become transactional, and you just felt like there was that, and it's right there. And you kind of touched about it on it a little bit earlier, but where it's like right there, but you knew it was not the right step. It wasn't being true to you. What were some of the thoughts that really held you true to that?
I think you develop, in whatever profession you're in, over time, you develop a skill set or an understanding of an approach or a strategy that you've seen be successful. And there may be others that are your teammates that have a particular skill set that is different. And so trying to educate, listen, I know that we want this sale. I know that this is right in front of us. But reaching out to that person every other day for the next 2 weeks is not a smart strategy. Right. So having relational awareness and maybe relational IQ, and that's just developed over time, and trying to educate the organization of, I believe you're gonna get the lines in the water. We're gonna catch a fish, but if we just stay disciplined to doing that, and not pivoting the strategy, and kind of sticking to what you think works and being faithful in that approach. Okay, good. Thank you. What role do humility and listening play in building relationships that actually last? Yeah, mentioned it earlier about listening. I think you'd be surprised what people will tell you if you just sit back and listen. I think there's an urge to sell your company or yourself or your organization, but if you just sit back and listen, oftentimes people reveal things that give you a great understanding of what their company's challenges are, or what their goals are, or projects that they're working on. And so if you'll sit and just have the patience and the discipline to listen, I think you will be informed on exactly how your organization will can go. And I think one practical example of this that I've seen is I'm sitting down with somebody new or a group of people new. I always want them to introduce themselves first. Because I want to hear who they are. I want to hear what their backgrounds are. Then I can look and say, I could have a better understanding of how does what 7B does and how does our value proposition ultimately answer problems, versus if I started and said, here's who I am, here's who we are. And then they go, oh, well, man, I wish I would have known that prior, because I could have told you experience we have doing that. But that's just a practical thing. If relationships are a form of stewardship, and I believe they are, how should that change the way leaders think about every interaction they have, external and internal? I think that every spiritual gifting, every internal, external relationship is given to us by God. So it's something that we need to steward. People aren't a throwaway. I think that you have an obligation to provide a good work environment. You have an obligation to coach people, an obligation to develop people, an obligation to let people fall short, show them grace and give them accountability out of love, and coach people up through that. And so I think every angle of our life we should steward, because it's given by God, it can be taken away. So steward it while it's within your purview. Great. Yeah. How do you think it's possible to lead others up, down, sideways when you're not the leader, as it were? You're a leader, or maybe for someone who's working in a company and they don't have a leadership position. How is it possible to lead from that place? think in that environment, it's often by example. I've been around leaders that are very vocal. I've been around leaders that are more internal, leaders that, you see their actions and you want to follow them.
Okay.
So I think that the best path to leadership, or the best path to maybe gaining a voice, is to show up every day and do the very best you can at your specific role. I've always viewed any opportunity I've gotten as an opportunity and audition for increased responsibilities. And so you get the desire is to have a leadership role, but maybe you don't today. Is just do the very best you can to be an expert in your role. And that will prove to gain you leadership opportunities in the future.
If someone were to evaluate you, we're going to project out 25 years from now, and they said, let me tell you about Clark. What are the things you would really love for them to have experienced and to remember about you?
I would want people to honestly not know what I did professionally.
Okay.
That is of zero concern to me.
Okay.
I take a lot of pride in my professional work, and I love where I work. But if someone didn't know what I did professionally, but knew how I treated people and knew the things that I did that were ministry related, and knew me in that sense, or knew me how I faithfully served my family or our church, that's what's of interest to me. That's how I would measure success. It wouldn't be 7B built $1 billion worth of buildings, which I think would be awesome and would empower us to have a lot of impact. But I think it'd be neat if someone asked, well, what does Clark do for? I don't really know. He's just a neat guy who cares a lot about people and loves the Lord. Amen. If that's said about me, then I think that's successful. And I think if you were to interview my wife in 20 years and interview our kids and they would say something similar, that would be success to me.
I love it. That's you've reminded me a lot of one of the things John Maxwell, his definition of success is, if the people who know me the best love and respect me the most. And sometimes that's the hardest. And so that's great. I'd like for us to close. Clark, say there's someone watching that's said, I'm not sure that faith and business really do go together. What encouragement would you give them to experiment with it or to change their mindset?
I think that it's easy in business to put a lot of weight on ourselves and to think that we are 100% responsible for the outcome. And that can lead to stress. It can lead to anxiety. It can lead to depression. I think we need to have a proper understanding of what is within our control and do the very best we can to honor God through execution of those tasks. Things that are out of our control, try to release those. It's very difficult to do that. And since we're closing, I'll share something that I think has been impactful for me. Is I want to be prayerful in the way that we conduct our business. I want to be faithful, and I want to bring every situation to the Lord. But I think the way we work and how we work and the diligence behind which,
Sorry about that.
No, I can start.
You're
over.
Good.
Yeah. I was kind of going on that rabbit hole. Question?
Encouraging someone who's, okay. So in closing, Clark, if you were talking to somebody's watching or listening, and they're saying, I really feel like business and faith are separate, and they need to be kept separate. What would you encourage them? How would you encourage them? And then maybe a mindset shift that you would encourage them to have.
Sure. Yeah. I think we have a tendency to grab the steering wheel, and oftentimes when we have success, our reliance on the Lord, the gap widens. And so I think for me, it's trying not to white knuckle the steering wheel. Do whatever I think is within my control and do it to the best of my ability, and understand that there's a God that's advocating for me in my personal, professional, and spiritual life, and to leave to Him what is to Him, and understand there's a lot of things that are outside of my control. And one phrase that I've really appreciated recently. And it talks about being prayerful, and acknowledging that God is in control and being faithful, but there's also work to be done. The phrase is, you can't lean on a shovel and pray for a hole.
Okay.
You can't be prayerful and, Lord, I wish this would happen. I really want this to happen. And he's given you the things that you need to go accomplish that and to go execute that. So be diligent in prayer, but work as hard as you can, not for men, but for the Lord. That's something that I try to model, and it's challenging, and I fall short every day, and thank God for grace.
Amen.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses say about owners and leaders that our people are our greatest asset. But Clark, you've done a great job saying there may be a different way, not an asset, but they're a sacred trust from God, and He's entrusted them to you. And so building relationships, genuine relationships that are about loving, caring, listening, serving, whether they're part of the team or the people you serve, really does make a difference. And it is the King's way. So thanks so much for joining us on Kingdom Entrepreneur.
And I'll thank you, Ray. I think that there's not many people I've met that are as interested in you, as interested in other people like you are. You take a genuine interest in people. You invest your time in developing people. And so I thank you for what you do. And it's a role model for me of how to get to a point in your life where, how do you serve? And I think that's the mentality you take every single day, professionally, but also with your family, and those grandkids. So thank you for what you do. It's often, someone sits in this seat, it's easy to talk about themselves, but to point the finger back to you and say, thank you for everything that you continue to do for our community.
That's very kind. Thank you. And so thanks for joining us on Kingdom Entrepreneur. Do want to encourage you to follow the show. Give us a thumbs up if you like it. Share it. There's somebody probably in your circle, your network, that would be served and encouraged by this. And again, Clark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right.